Have you ever just stopped and thought about how you think? How this 3 pound chunk of tissue sitting inside your skull can create your entire universe? All your thoughts, your memories, your biggest dreams, it all starts right there. Today, we're going to bridge that gap between brain and mind and explore the incredible science of how your brain actually builds you. So let's start with a big question. What is it that powers every single idea you've ever had? Every feeling, every memory? It's not magic and it's not some abstract force. It's something physical, something real that you carry around with you every single second of the day. It's this amazing 3 pound universe of cells and electricity. Everything that makes you, it sparks into existence right here. And honestly, understanding how it all works is one of the greatest scientific adventures we've ever been on.
So to really kick off that adventure, we kind of have to look at the field that first started asking all the big questions, psychology. The whole quest to understand our own minds has a really long and pretty wild history.
For centuries, thinking about the mind was a job for philosophers. Then, fast forward to the 20th century, and you get the behaviorists, who basically said, if we can't see it, we're not going to study it. But the real revolution, the game changer, came later on, when we finally got the tools to look inside the skull and see the brain's machinery in action. All right, so let's follow that path. Let's zoom in. And I mean, way in. We're going to start with the absolute fundamental building blocks of your entire mental world. Get ready for this number. 86 billion. That's the estimated number of these little building blocks inside the average human brain. 86 billion tiny little processors, all working together in a network that is just mind-bogglingly complex. And they're called neurons. These are the brain's information messengers. Think of it like this. Their dendrites are like little antennas, constantly listening for signals. And the axon? That's the transmission cable that sends the message out. These cells are designed for one thing and one thing only, to talk to each other. So how do they do it? Well, the short answer, they do it with a jolt of electricity. It's a super fast, powerful, and incredibly precise electrical signal that is the basis for everything that happens inside a single neuron. That electrical jolt is called an action potential, and it works on a really simple but really powerful rule. It's all or nothing. A neuron is either quiet, just sitting there waiting for enough input, or it fires with absolutely everything it has. There's no in between. Once it gets enough signals to hit a certain threshold, bam, it fires. That electrical message goes racing down the axon to talk to the next cell in line. Okay, but what happens when that electrical pulse gets to the very end of the line? It hits a dead end, a tiny little gap. And electricity can't just jump across that gap. So, to get the message across, it has to completely change form. It goes from being electrical to being chemical. This incredible transformation happens at the synapse. It's a microscopic space between two neurons, and when the electrical pulse arrives, it triggers the release of these little chemical messengers we call neurotransmitters. This is where all the magic happens, converting that simple electrical pulse into a complex chemical signal. So these chemical messages, they basically boil down to two simple commands. Some of them are excitatory, which is like shouting, go, go, fire. And others are inhibitory, which is like saying, stop, hold on, don't fire. And every single neuron is listening to thousands of these go and stop signals at once, and it decides whether to fire based on the grand total of all those messages. So let's meet a couple of the most famous neurotransmitters. First up, dopamine. This is the chemical of reward, of motivation. You know that little rush you get when you finish a hard workout or check off a big item on your to-do list? Yeah, that's dopamine. But when it's out of balance, it's linked to really serious issues, from addiction all the way to Parkinson's disease. And then there's serotonin. Think of this one as a master regulator. It helps control your mood, your sleep, your appetite, the whole shebang. And we know that low levels of serotonin are strongly connected to depression. This is exactly why a lot of antidepressants, called SSRIs, are designed to do one thing: keep more serotonin available in those synapses. Okay, so we've seen the tiny messengers and the chemical signals. Now let's zoom back out and look at the big picture. Let's take a quick tour of the major departments, the large-scale architecture of the brain. So the brain isn't just one big blob. It's organized into different regions, or lobes, that specialize in different jobs. Up front, you've got the frontal lobe for thinking. Then the parietal lobe for touch and sensation. On the sides, the temporal lobe for hearing, and way in the back, the occipital lobe, which is basically your own personal vision processing center. They all have their own roles, but they're constantly talking to each other. Let's talk about the part right up front, the frontal lobe. You can think of it as the CEO of the brain. It's in charge of the big stuff, planning, making decisions, and, impulse control, stopping you from saying that thing you probably shouldn't say. And we actually learned a ton about this from the tragic story of Phineas Gage. He was a railroad worker who had a massive iron rod blast right through his frontal lobe. Miraculously, he survived. But he wasn't the same person. The responsible, well-liked guy was gone, replaced by someone impulsive and unreliable. It was the first real clue that our personality, our very self, lives in a specific part of the brain. Now, if you go a little deeper inside, you'll find the limbic system. This is the brain's emotional core. And two of the star players here are the amygdala, which is like your brain's smoke detector, constantly scanning for threats and processing fear, and the hippocampus, which is absolutely vital for forming new long-term memories. I mean, without your hippocampus, you wouldn't be able to remember what you did 5 minutes ago. So we've got this incredibly complicated machine with billions of tiny parts and all these specialized departments. But here is the single most amazing thing about it. It is not fixed. It is not a static piece of hardware that you're born with. Your brain is constantly, actively changing itself. There's this famous saying in neuroscience that just captures the whole idea perfectly. Neurons that fire together, wire together. What it means is, the more you use a specific pathway in your brain, the stronger and more efficient that connection becomes. It's the physical basis of how we learn, how we form habits, how we get better at things. The scientific name for this is neuroplasticity. It's the brain's incredible ability to rewire itself based on experience. And I want to be super clear here. This is not a metaphor. Every single time you learn a new fact, practice a new skill, or even just have a new thought, you are physically changing the structure of your brain. And we have amazing proof of this. There's a famous study of London taxi drivers. Now, to get their license, they have to memorize thousands of winding streets. It's an insane memory task. And researchers found that these drivers have a hippocampus, that memory center we just talked about, that is significantly larger than the average person's. Their brains physically grew to handle the job. How cool is that? And that leaves us with one final and really powerful thought. The science is crystal clear. Your brain is not just static hardware. It's this dynamic, living thing that you are actively building and sculpting with every choice you make every day. So knowing that your experiences are literally shaping the universe inside your head, what will you choose to experience next?